Now we have a panel discussion on ad fraud, a big challenge, solutions, and way forward. This is becoming a major challenge for the advertisers in the digital domain. It leads to spilling a lot of ad dollars with zero efficiency around that money. It is extremely important for a marketer to be wary of such frauds and prevent their content and money being spent in a futile expedition. Globally, marketers are losing billions of dollars to this ad fraud. We have invited a group of panelists to discuss the issue. I would like to welcome Dhiraj Gupta, co-founder and CTO company Filterit, to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Mr. Gupta.
Hi, and welcome to this session on ad fraud and brand safety. My name is Dhiraj Gupta, and I am the CTO and co-founder at Filterit. With me is an interesting panel of advertisers covering a wide range of verticals. And I think this is going to be an interesting conversation on this topic, and understanding and hearing their viewpoints as they deal with this problem is going to be a learning opportunity for a lot of the participants. With me is Nimish. Nimish Agarwal is Senior Vice President and Head of Marketing at Ainee Fatima Health Insurance. Nimish, you want to say briefly about yourself?
Thank you, Dhiraj. Hello, everyone. My name is Nimish. I head marketing. I'm Chief Marketing Officer at Max Bupa, which is now Ainee Fatima Health Insurance. In addition to marketing, I also lead the digital business, which is where we encounter a lot of interesting conversation around ad fraud. So happy to be here, and thank you so much. Dhiraj, back to you.
Next, and again in the fintech space, is Meghna Chitri. Meghna is lead digital marketing with ICICI Bank. Meghna.
Thank you, Dhiraj. Hi, everyone. I take care of B2B marketing, B2B digital marketing initiatives for ICICI Bank. And before this, I have been associated with BFSI segment for a few years now. Very excited to be a part of this discussion and look forward to having some insightful debates and discussions through this panel. Thank you.
Great. And next participant, and again from fintech and insurance, maybe we should insure this session also, is Siddesh Kirkar, Head Prospect and Digital Marketing at Aditya Birla Sun Life. Siddesh.
Hi, guys. I'm Siddesh. I head prospecting and digital marketing for Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance. So just like Meghna said, B2B, I'm like a B2B2C kind of a role that I have here. So connecting both the B2B and the customers together. So over to you.
Welcome, Siddesh, for this. And finally, we have Chetan Sharma, Chief Digital Marketing Officer at Adda 52 Rummy. Finally, at gaming side, Chetan.
So hi, Dhiraj, and thanks for the intro. So I am probably the odd one out here. I'm in real money gaming industry where we do see a lot of frauds on every possible sites possible. So yeah, and so we have games like poker, rummy, fantasy, and so on and so forth. So what do you, Dhiraj?
Thank you so much. Great. With this, let me bring a quick background and construct to ad fraud. A recent report by an American company, an IT security company, came out with a very interesting insight. They found out that about 62% of traffic on any website or app is actually bot driven, 62%, which means that the human traffic on a normal website and nothing to do with ads or anything. If you have a website, 62% of traffic will be bots. And about half of the 62% is good bots. Good bots include, say, the Google search bot, the Google ads bot, and so on and so forth. All these bots which are spiders, which are crawling the internet. And then there are almost 50% of those which are bad bots which obviously don't want to be found, don't want to be noticed. And what that brings in is that human beings are already overtaken. What that means is machines are already ruling the internet. We have more machine visits on the internet than human visits. With that in mind, digital marketing, which is the default way for most websites to monetize themselves, is under exposure on ad fraud from all these machine visits. And this then begs to question is that, how do we deal with that fraud if it is at this stage of digital? And as digital is growing in the COVID era or post-COVID era, the impact of this is only increasing because more and more budgets are going into digital marketing. India is increasing its share of spends from marketers. So as first round, I want to understand from all the advertisers as to how has been their experience on ad fraud. What have they done in their respective company or in their past experience? So Nimish, over to you to begin with. How have you dealt with it? Have you observed this kind of behavior? And what has been your to-do action when this happened for your campaigns?
Thank you, Dhiraj, for that question. In my experience, because I've worked in a cross section of industries from consumer goods to paints. My last stint was heading marketing for Naukri.com. And now I'm in the insurance space. So I've had exposure to performance marketing, digital marketing, as we say, across a cross section of industries. I'll answer your question, or attempt to answer your question in two parts. One is what have we seen from a advertising shift? Okay, about a decade back, as young brand manager in CPG, the amount of spend that we used to do on digital marketing was to the extent of 4.5%, right? Now it's to the extent of about 35% in internet companies like Naukri. It was to the extent of about 65-70%. So as you rightly said, there's a huge chunk of money that's going in digital these days. Naturally, you'll have bees where the honey is, okay? And pandemic has only accelerated that entire shift to money. Now to the specific question in terms of how have we done few things in terms of identifying whether it's a bot traffic or whether it's some bit of manipulation happening, whether it is conversion, downloads, etc. About 8-9 months back, okay, we did see in one of our websites on Naukri, especially the Gulf website, which is naukrigulf.com, we were having abnormal spikes on download and visits. Okay, because we have an empirical set of data, we did realize that the average time spent on the website is close to 4 minutes. But there's a certain section of traffic that is coming in from a specific geography where the time spent is close to 19 minutes. Now, when an average time spent is about 4-5 minutes to 19 minutes, and that's happening in a huge spike from a certain geography at a certain point in time, is something that got us to really be aware of this entire problem. We all know that it's happening. We all know that it is to the extent different reports say it's about 2.8%, 3.5%. A very recent report says 3,500 crores of money in advertising is around gets wasted because of fraud. But we've never rose to the occasion in terms of doing something really consciously about it. What we've started doing very, very regularly is that we've started monitoring spikes. We've built a lot more rigor on our dashboard. So there is a dashboard which is there from a publisher standpoint. What we've started doing a lot more is improving our analytical stack in the organization. So rather than being dependent on what's happening on a, let's say, a GA or a Omniture, we've also started logging in activities and behaviors in a very, very synchronized manner in our own database, so that we are aware of what's happening on the behavior front. And whenever we feel there is an anomaly that is happening on behavior, for example, one consumer making 25 CVs. In a recruitment industry, we optimize for leads, and leads is essentially a CV. So consumer will make one CV, but from the same IP, if you're getting 25 CVs, you know there's fraud happening because we are optimizing, we're paying for per lead. And that person or that manipulation is to the extent of 1:25. So that's one thing that we've done. Second thing that we've done is we've started understanding what are the different organizations which are working, because fraud has also become very, very so. जैसे ताले evolve होते हैं, चोर भी evolve हो जाते हैं. So fraud has also become very sophisticated, and just analytical based stack would not help you. So we now started engaging with I think Infiltrate and some more organizations in this space to try and understand what is the wastage, if there is a way that they can quantify what is happening and how can they help us save money. So that's been the two things that we've been doing.
Absolutely, Nimish. And for all participants out there, I think, Nimish, you took the first step very rightly. I think data analysis is extremely important. And I think kudos to you that you and your team could actually get into that spike analysis and come to that conclusion. To be honest, a lot of advertisers still struggle with data, even though digital marketing is all about data. And yes, if you do want to do something in-house, then the first thing your digital marketing team needs to have is a set of data sciences people in-house, because you need to be comfortable processing large amount of data to come out to those conclusions, which you did rightly so. And I think that's very crucial. Meghna, question for you. Typically, we've seen fraud covering all channels, right? And obviously, it's if bots are visiting every website, then every channel will be equally exposed. We've seen bots on Facebook, we've seen bots on Google search, we've seen how bots are repeatedly coming in across different websites. But generally, attention and focus of advertisers have been limited to certain platforms. For example, programmatic or walled gardens seem to be let off easily. It seems that there is a myth that these are cleaner traffic, and maybe they are. But what's your opinion about this, Meghna?
Thank you for the question, Dhiraj. So quite honestly, I think it's the opposite. Advertisers, when they spend a little more time and as they mature as digital advertisers, they've started realizing that not so much visibility, not so much control is available to them when they go to walled garden or they go for programmatic way of executing campaigns. Like Nimish rightly said, the first step is to analyze your data, right? Don't just go by the report that's coming to you, which is saying this many clicks, this many CTR. Spend a little more time with your data, analyze it, understand what exactly is the behavior that's being driven through this traffic or through this lead that is coming to you, right? Maybe at the beginning you will not have that IP level data and you may not have the dashboards available, but you can definitely deep dive and understand what is the conversions you are aiming for and what sources are driving those for you, be it programmatic, be it walled garden. It's a lack of understanding which restricts people from going deeper and questioning more and asking for the right questions and asking questions irrespective of them being right or wrong, seeking clarity. And another very important thing that we as digital marketers miss is we sort of tend to stop our action post the campaign metrics. We need to also look at the events. Fine, I was supposed to get a click, I got the click. What is the behavior after that click? Is the user sort of spending more time, less time, going into 3 pages, 2 pages, 1 pages, clicking somewhere else, taken something away from the website which is actionable in terms of downloading a PDF, or did they watch a video to completion? What is it that the user did beyond clicking on your ad is also very, very important and deterministic in terms of identifying who are you talking to. And Dhiraj, to your point, yes, there are good bots and there are bad bots. Luckily, I think in my experience, good bots have been more than the bad bots. But for bad bots also, you need to have contingency and you need to know how are you analyzing and what are you assessing for at the end of the day as a business owner, right? That's the approach that you need to apply for any of the campaigns.
Chetan, no, thank you so much, Meghna. And I want to take that conversation towards Chetan. Chetan, there has been a gulf in marketing between brand campaigns and performance campaigns. And since you lead digital marketing across, typically organization structure says, okay, I'm a brand marketer, I'm a performance marketer. Brand marketers typically CPM, CPCs, and they don't look at down the funnel and say, my job is to get reach and frequency and my job finishes there. The performance marketer's journey the performance marketer starts from visits and says sale kitni hai, lead kitni hai, aur mere ko impression se matlab hi nahi hai, right? In your opinion, marketing is, in my opinion at least, marketing is not, this is gulfs which we have made as an organization structure. And I think fraud analysis ends up escaping because of this, because brand marketers don't look at down the funnel, which is what Meghna was talking about. And when you're paying on impressions or clicks, you need to link it up with down the funnel to actually know what your ROI was, right? Even if it was a brand campaign. What's your opinion about that?
No, correct. So, in fact, for us, even for our brand campaigns, we measure everything, right? So, not just reach, frequency, or probably views that we have got, whether we are working with influencers or doing a big influencer campaign on any of the social media channels. The end objective should be the brand uplift, direct traffic increase, and not again, it won't end there. What kind of installs have I got? Are these guys playing or not? Because we are trying to give, as far as the offer is concerned, we try and make sure we give the best offer possible. Right there, then there has to be some reason why that person is still not trying out. Either the messaging was not right. We've, like, for example, you come to my platform, I'll give you 150 or 200 rupees for free to play, right? Which normally for gambling nobody does, or for a skill game nobody does that, right? Where you can make money out of this money, I'm giving you free money to play. Even after that, if you're not playing, then that brand campaign is not helping me at all, right? So something is not right. So obviously for us, we measure everything in terms of how many games played, how many times spent, and even against which all players are you playing, because a lot of people end up creating multiple accounts, because we do give a lot of incentive to come and at least start or try our platform for the first time. So figuring that out, that also a portion to a lot of fraud in our case, where you probably will create a multiple account, try and do chip dumping from one to the other, lose everything and just go, right? So for us, data even becomes even more important to measure everything at a user level. What are you doing?
Amazing, amazing. In fact, I was recently I came across this website, smsactivate.ru. It's a Russian site. They actually offer disposable phone numbers for 180 countries through an API. Okay. And you can actually do OTP validations on disposable numbers, and you can actually do, say, 20,000 accounts on your app, for example. And all of them will be OTP verified. And a lot of advertisers feel very comfortable that, okay, I have an OTP validation done. So, I've escaped fraud. And, that was an eye opener for me as well at that running at such a large scale. Check out that website, sms-activate.ru. Okay. Siddesh, over to you. A lot of reports recently have shown very diverse numbers on fraud, right? So, for example, the number I quoted about, there's an American company which talks about 62% fraud. Mm-hmm. Recently, a lot of programmatic fraud vendors, American vendors, have talked about 1-2% fraud numbers. Google, when it refunds money, or in its global balance sheet, it talks about how much money it refunded. It talks about 2% fraud. There seems to be a disconnect. If bots are at 60% and then fraud reported is 2%, the gulf is really too large to explain. What is your thought on what is the true number, or at least a range? I mean, I don't know anyone knows the number or not, but what do you think is the fraud on your campaigns? What's your guess estimate on this?
The numbers which you are quoting from 60% to 1%, I think one common thing between both the numbers is, yes, there's fraud happening. So there is no doubt about it saying that there is no fraud happening, and hence it is not at all. We should not give a second thought basically to that particular thing, that we should not have tools or have some kind of a ways in which we can actually identify what kind of traffic is fraud and all. Like Meghna mentioned, it's more about not just having an understanding of what's the user journey before he becomes your prospect, but also once he becomes your prospect, he gives you his details and everything. That's what happens in BFSI. You need to analyze that thing as well. You need to understand what kind of qualifications are you getting for those set of prospects which you're trying to generate. Coming back to the number, I think the numbers might vary and vary at a very different level, but it depends upon what exactly is the number that you are getting. So the number for you, it might also be at 5% or 50%. And hence, by putting all the set of matrices or all set of, I would say, defenses that we have in place. So having said that, we look at our own set of data points, analyze, see certain set of spikes, as Nimish said, and then try and come to a conclusion that, yes, there were certain places or certain set of certain points in which we saw that there were some deflections and the delta was very high, and hence just let's go and identify what exactly it was and then try and block it. Like we recently faced one problem. One of our page, which is a landing page for one of our product. Suddenly we started seeing huge numbers on that page. And one particular number which actually got us wondering was, if there are so many people coming on this page, why is the bounce rate of this page at 99.9%? So suddenly, if there are people coming in, the rest of the website is working really fine with a 30%, 35% bounce rate. Why is this one single page coming where we have seen such high bounce rates? Then after going through multiple set of numbers, we realized that it was actually a page where our own vendors, who was a tech solution for us, they had kept one of their bot live to check the that page is working or not, and they just forgot to stop that after the UAT testing happened. So all these things also happened. So we really can't say that the fraud number which we are looking at is that the correct number or not. Sometimes it's something which is done purposely. Sometimes there are certain set of things which are which you have not planned, but somebody else has planned.
So
to
that
make
would
your life
count under
difficult.
the good bot, as Meghna put it, right? Because it was your own bot. But I think 2 points here. Bounce rate. If you're actually, I think advertisers have this habit of saying, very low bounce rate means my traffic is good. Bots can spoof your bounce rate. If you're actually getting very good bounce rate, which is below
No, it's
your
not
organic.
the case. Although I would not agree to it. Yeah, because
Absolutely.
nowadays, as the COVID virus has evolved, the bots have also evolved.
No,
So-
of course. So, in fact, if you're getting an extremely good bounce rate on your inorganic, which is better than your organic traffic, then most likely you have fraud. Because basically, your organic traffic is a good reflection of your website quality and your website speed and your engagement with the user. If the organic traffic, say, has a 30-40% bounce rate, then your inorganic should also be at that number or more than that. Expecting it to be at 5% means that you're probably getting fraud traffic. In fact,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Sudesh.
So one particular incident which happened with me in my previous company, which was CoverFox. So since we have quality guys to listen to the calls and everything which comes to us, suddenly one person saw that there is one thing. There are like 4 or 5 calls which he listened to, and the voice of the member or the person who was
Same.
talking on the other side, it was similar, and he was like, "Arey sir, सबका आवाज same आ रहा है, only car का number अलग-अलग है, but that person is sounding pretty similar." So it's not just about the frauds happening through the bots, but also the frauds happening through manual kind of data being fed. So that particular lady, we later on figured out that that lady was just sitting. She had some list of phone numbers with her, and she was just putting in those phone numbers and filling in leads.
Lead punching.
Yeah.
So pretty classic case of bots punching in leads, and then your call center talking to another fraudster's call centers to call center. Karthik calling Karthik wala pattern working out. In fact, at mFilter, since we're talking about numbers, at mFilter on, say, Google search or Google GDN, we see something about 10, 15, 20% fraud numbers consistently. Definitely lower than what we would normally see on, say, affiliates. On affiliates, we end up seeing about 40, 50% numbers is the normal number we see. Facebook also 15, 20% is a common number. Programmatic actually has a higher fraud number, and I'm talking about aggregated numbers across all advertisers. On something like DV360, for example, we see easily about 30-35% fraud, which is substantial savings, especially because you're paying on CPMs on a DV360 case, right? So that's the numbers which we see on walled gardens, which we help clients in resolving. Nimish, a question for you. I'm sure you would be running a lot of search GDN campaigns, and your payouts then is on clicks, right? How do you take care of that, and how do you take care of your competitors not eating up your budget on, say, a search, for example? And that's also a fraud. For example, your competitors eating up your campaign budgets and trying to take the #1 ranking for you. How do you deal with that, or what do you do there?
See, I feel bad about it. It's the scam of the century, and unfortunately, people are getting away with it, right? When we talk about net neutrality, and what you're saying is an industry-wide issue. If I've built domain authority on a certain trademark property, that's the guys with larger wallets squeezing the smaller guys, and it happens all the time. And I've been part of small organizations and large organizations. I think that's a scam. as simple as that. Having said that, see, there are largely two kinds of model that we have: click-based model, where the objective is to drive a lead. But as I think Meghna also mentioned this, and Chetan also talked about it, it's very important not to stop the conversation at lead. I'll give you a classic example. We're running a lot of USC campaign. USC is a new thing, right? App download, escape the walled gardens, get consumer onto your own proprietary channel. There are 100 downloads happening a day. By evening, 65 downloads have uninstalled. So that's very that stickiness. 1 day stickiness is 35%. By end of 7 days or 1 week retention, it's barely 8-9%. And the problem with app is it's very difficult ecosystem to track. It's a very difficult ecosystem to track. There aren't enough tracking capabilities. So to answer your question, Dhiraj, when we are optimizing for click, we do pass a business conversion signal. For example, I want an active user, and let's say the definition of active is somebody searching a job. So I'm optimizing at least walled gardens because they have evolved. There are ways in which we at least try and ensure that we are not only optimizing for the simplest lower funnel metric, but we also are giving in a signal so that the system is optimizing for an engaged user. So that's one way we do it. Even on downloads, BFSI industry, at least our industry, is not very big on download, but some of the other industries that I've been part of, they're very big on download these days.
Chetan is smiling right now. I'm sure Chetan is facing that pinch. Yeah, Nimish.
Yeah.
So, if you give 150 rupees to play, you will have a lot of bots enjoying themselves. But the idea is that you want them to play the second game with their own money. Okay, so you have to optimize for that signal. Like, for example, I gave an example of Naukri.com where downloading or uploading your CVs is one action, but the bigger action is that you find a job. So we do optimize, at least in some of the walled gardens. The systems have evolved. At least that's what we are told. So we optimize for the second signal or the third signal. So that's one way we try and leverage not just the CPC, which is a bidding model, but more engagement, more to the business and not to the platform. So there are metrics that have been created for the platform, and there are metrics which are to the business. So we try and optimize for business events and not for AdWord or ad manager nomenclatures.
Meghna, let me change the topic and let's talk a little bit on brand. Okay, and I think everyone else's performance. So Meghna, maybe you can talk about the brand side of it. Advertisers, when they're running brand campaigns, they focus on viewability, and viewability seems to be the only metric they look at. And they say, oh, my viewability is 100%. I am fraud free, right? I don't need to bother about anything else. Is that true? And should you link viewability with ad fraud?
Not at all. So viewability is basically a metric which is telling you the quality of the inventory that you're getting, right? Whether it's up above the line or below the line, whether you're getting visibility for your ad slot, for your ads that you're running. It's not necessarily a measure of whether there is a bot clicking on it, whether it's a bot loading that page, or whether there is a redirection or engagement within your creative that is driven by a bot. So that's absolutely no. Viewability is good for identifying quality inventory, not a measure of ad fraud. So
in fact, I had a premise here, right? So let's say I'm the best website. Okay, I'm the best publisher, and I'm completely true, and there is no fraud on my website. Now, and will I have 100% viewability on my placements? Right? I can never have 100% viewability because I can't control consumer scrolling behavior, right? If he doesn't scroll down, what do I do about that? I can't force him. No, you have to go down, otherwise my website ranking will go for a toss, right? I can't do that. Which means that advertisers seem to have that myth in mind that I will only work with 100% viewability and everything else is bakwas. Is effectively, so let me put it this way: only fraudulent websites will actually give you 100% viewability, right? Because normal websites can never give you 100% viewability, in my opinion.
So Dhiraj, I think this deviation in the mind of advertiser comes from the confusion that arises from the definition of viewability itself, right? Which says 50% of your ad should be visible. So when you say 50%, they think, "Acha, matlab 50% inventory will be available for me with viewable metric." That's not the case. There's a definition of it, and then there is a quantifiable inventory that you will get out of it. Yes, we have advanced technology which help us control that, but it will never be 100%, because you as an advertiser will be putting so many caps to it in terms of, my cost shouldn't go beyond this point, my PG should be so and so, I will run it only through this time of the day. So at all those points, meeting all those parameters across a quality site, you will not always get 100% inventory which are viewable. 70, 75%, 80 is okay, but 20% will definitely go under non-viewable inventory. The reason is, even if you're doing branding or you're doing performance, you're sort of driving it on a factor that I'm running after a target audience, right? Your target audience is on the page. The machine understands that there's a target audience on the page and I should deliver an ad, right? As long as it's within the metric and you're able to sort of qualify all right things, there is no issue. And ad fraud measurement tools like Trade, etc., should be deployed to get that advanced understanding of what exactly is the source which is driving good traffic, bad traffic, good performance, bad performance. And just to add one more point, Dhiraj, I think the lens needs to change a little, right? We are just looking at it from demand side, right? I want good quality, I want perfect ad fraud free traffic, I want highest performance. We need to change the lens a little and look at supply chain, and then the supply side of a business. And we need to reach out to our ad exchanges and ad networks and publishers and SSPs and hold them accountable also, because there maybe out of 100 only 4 are the troublesome ones, and who are creating a ruckus. We have to highlight it, identify it, and highlight it to them that these are the 4-5 troublemakers in your exchange, which is eating up all my budget, and I don't want to work with you maybe until and unless you fix this. So a focus needs to be shifted to supply side also, because advertiser alone do not run the entire show. There is a supplier also.
The ownership needs to be taken up by the other side as well, and right, it should not fall everything on the advertiser. In fact, with that, since you talked about SSP, DSPs, Siddesh and Chitan, I don't know if you run programmatic campaigns or not, but this is concept of ads.txt, and ads.txt was a standard which got rolled out, which very simply, first of all, tells you whether your ad actually ran on the inventory where it was supposed to, right? Technically, I can run on Dhiraj.com and I can say it is BBC, and programmatic will actually allow that to happen. Ads.txt clears that off and sorts that out. What is your experience on ads.txt? Have you used that for programmatic campaigns? Do you see penetration in India increasing on ads.txt if you have an experience on programmatic in this space?
So, to talk about this particular set of things, which is ads.txt, or you can call JSON, sellers.json, which are there. I think, see, it's the most of the big publishers, okay, which are actually on programmatic. They are having this technology with them, so that we're able to identify those set of things as well. But when we run a campaign on programmatic, our major goal is to reach the end user and not a specific kind of a website. So whether it is on a Dhiraj.com or he is on a BBC.com, that is something which most of the time doesn't matter for me, at least. But the only thing is whether that user who's actually on BBC.com or on Dhiraj.com, he should not be a bot. He should be a proper user. Till that time, it is something which is not pinching me, and hence, for me, it's not that kind of a difficult decision to make, that whether we should actually go with only those set of portals which are having this set of things live on their website. Rather than that, I would say that I would rather want to implement some kind of a fraud detection tool along with the campaigns, and then try and see that whether my ad which ran on different set of portals, apps, or any website, whether it was fraud free or not, because that's something which makes sense. And as we have seen, आप एक चीज डालोगे तो कुछ ना कुछ दूसरा जुगाड़ तो निकाल ही देंगे लोग.
Hey Siddesh, I do want to say I would strongly recommend you to consider ads.txt as an enablement point. And typically the behavior right now which we are seeing is that good publishers who want to value their brand and value their traffic will have implemented ads.txt. Bad publishers who don't want to be caught are the ones who obviously don't want to implement ads.txt. It's not a very tech-heavy solution. It's a very simple solution. And any publisher who has a website should be able to set it up. So anyone in the audience, of course, implement a fraud detection solution, preferably ours. But please do implement an ads.txt as well. It's a very simple process, and most DSPs support it. You will be able to have cleaner traffic and probably a better mix of publishers. It doesn't cost you anything, and
I think that is
better.
it is being implemented by most of the people. So since I was looking at few numbers, I saw that there are people who have already started implementing it. So be it ads.txt or app ads.txt, whatever these files are for apps and for different websites. So I think that is already happening. It's not the case that people are not doing it. The only thing is the awareness has to come in more. As you mentioned, there are lots of people we'll find in our industry whom if you would ask this question, they'll not be able to understand that what exactly you're talking about. So that is something which is still.
No, I completely agree. And hence I wanted to use this forum to give that message to all participants. Please do use ads.txt. App ads.txt is a recent one, so coverage is much lower, but definitely for website, you should cover that. Mm-hmm. Chetan, over to you. When you're running a brand campaign and you're trying to look at down the funnel metrics, and your performance team is having its own KRAs, your brand team has its own KRAs, how do you bridge that gap as a CMO? How do you say, okay, brand, this is where your target stops and this is where performance, your target begins? How do you juggle with that?
So I would say, while deciding my budget itself, right? How do I split my budget between performance and brand? We take a call because I believe that performance itself also contributes to some part of branding as well, right? When you're running a lot of display campaigns, whether it's programmatic or whatever you're doing, it's not a clear-cut just performance. And when you do brand campaign, your performance campaigns also give you better results because you'll have better CTRs, right? You'll have better conversion rates. So it's a mix. So normally for me, the decision is more on the side of in terms of the performance channel where I'm spending money at. What is the optimal cost that I can spend there? And obviously, remaining is what I'm going to spend on all my brand campaigns. And at the end of the day, I'll measure everything based on the end goal, which is for me a person making a deposit after playing free games. So that's what we measure.
Understood. So you're basically linking everything at the time of when you're allocating budgets, and you're trying to link up both, because obviously both will cross support each other. Correct. And they're not in silos. Understood that. Nimish, on your thought process, when you're running brand campaigns and performance campaigns, how do you link them up together? I wanted your viewpoint from a fintech space. Because I think you have a combination of app and web. Chetan probably is more app focused. What's your viewpoint, Nimish, on it?
I'm actually 100% with Chetan on this one. Two aspects, and I've learned this the hard way around. Whether it is brand campaign or whether it is performance marketing campaign, the litmus test or the set of metrics that we track is exactly same. So if I'm running a brand campaign, I would track website visits, I would track leads, I would track business uplift or the gross written premium, etc., what we call in our industry. The same set of metrics is if I'm running a performance marketing campaign, exactly the same set of metrics. So the metrics remains the same. Obviously, a brand campaign, we are less harsher in terms of because there is an attribution problem, right? There's a lot of offline in our industry as well. There is an advisor network, and you can't wish them away. Everybody is not going to Policy Bazaar or Niva Bupa, Max Bupa website and buy. They brand campaigns do generate some kind of interest consideration, and that gets captured in the brand track that we run. So one thing that we do for sure is that we have the tracking capability on the same set of metrics for both the set of campaigns. That's one. Second is I'm blessed to have a very ambitious team. So the brand guys wants to do performance marketing job, and performance marketing guys wants to do brand job. Because the brand marketing guys feel that they're missing out something in life, and the performance marketing guys feel that they've become a sales team. They've become sales team. So they want to understand how the campaign, etc. So there's a good bit of fungibility that we do. We keep rotating people. We did that a lot in Naukri, where I had a large set of performance marketing in-house team and a fairly reasonable size this. And we've also started this in my current assignment. When we started rotating people, it's very, very important. There's one thing that Chetan said: every impression on search is as much a branding opportunity as it's a performance or a lead opportunity. Consumer doesn't differentiate कि ये performance वाले brand manager चला रहा है या no.
Of course.
Ad wala brand manager chala raha hai. It's the same consumer. The same consumer is watching TV. The same consumer is interacting on Canvas or whatever programmatic or ad exchange that you're using, and the same consumer is searching on Google. So it's very important for some bit of branding to be inbuilt in a good performance marketing guide. It's very important that when you write your description, your expanded text, you're using the same language that is being used on your website. Okay, a Bihari cannot become Anglophone, so you have to have the same consistency in brand, so that your brand comes across as one common person and not a split personality. So that's one thing which is very, very important, and we keep doing these common sessions. In fact, for our large performance marketing campaigns, okay, let's say JFM is a season for insurance industry. July, August, September was a season for recruitment industry. So when we start off a large campaign, whether it's performance or brand campaign, it starts with a common team huddle, a common dictionary, common set of assets that we will sweat, a common set of language that we will use for driving call to action or lower funnel click-throughs.
Amazing. I think I'm blessed with this panel and your mature thoughts, Nimish and Chetan and Siddesh and Meghna, because when we're talking with a lot of advertisers, we keep seeing this gulf between a brand approach and a performance approach. And when I try and explain that, okay, the customer is the same, and shouldn't you kind of marry these together? The answer I get is not my KRA and not my job. I'm focused on impressions and clicks, and uske baad aap usse baat karke aao, right? Don't talk to me about that. I think advertisers need to understand that finally your message is going together to the consumer, and maybe CMOs need to play that bigger role, because a brand marketer with a very brand focused KRA will never be able to bring that insight out and will not focus on that, while a performance marketer will end up focusing very heavily only on performance and will not care about even impressions. As an industry standard, a lot of performance campaigns don't even track impressions right now. There's no impression trackers in place for most of the performance campaigns, because advertisers say, I don't care impression kahan chal raha hai, to mujhe sale la ke do, baki kahan se chala rahe ho mujhe matlab nahi hai, right? In fact, I want to also bring in another aspect of brand safety. Brand safety has been a topic which is focused only on brand marketers. Brand marketers have appreciate brand safety, understand brand safety. But if you go to performance marketing and say, brand safety, they're like, how do I care? I'm getting a sale, I'm getting a sale. Chetan, I don't know if you get a deposit, do you really care what deposit kahan se aa raha hai, right? That KRA, I'm not sure if it needs to come in or not for performance. What's your opinion, Chetan? Should performance marketers get an easy exit on brand safety?
No, actually, it's a bit of a mixed opinion. I would say for some categories, or probably I would say the kind of TG I have, I know that all the other sites they might be visiting probably, so I'm okay still running my ads there. But yeah, it definitely helps if you know where the traffic is coming from and not just the deposit, because we do get a lot of frauds even after deposits, right? We see a pattern and they will just probably make a 50 rupee deposit, which is a bare minimum deposit. But and for me, I'm paying 400, 500 rupees, right, for that guy, which I'm never going to recover. So yeah, so it's like a mix. I would say definitely where you're running some campaigns, for example, for a game like poker, right, where I am not allowed to run ads on Google. So then for me, venues are a little limited, wherein for Rummy, I can run ads on Google and Facebook, right? Now for poker, since I have limited venues, so I have to rely on all the possible other channels where I can get traffic from and at least get a deposit to start with.
Understood. No, thank you so much for that background, Chetan. I think with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much, Nimish, Meghna, Chetan, and Siddesh for participating in this conversation. I'm sure participants would have picked up some pointers and thought process, and hopefully we've busted some myths at least for our listeners here. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope that this has been of value to the listeners in terms of helping them in running their campaigns better. Thank you. Over and out.
Thank you, everyone, for the thoughtful session on ad fraud, many learnings and solutions to the challenges faced by ad fraud. Now we'll move to the next session. Stay tuned and keep sharing the highlights using the hashtag ETMarkTechAsia.